What I'm about to share with you has been life-changing for my clients over the past year. And I want to share it with you too, so that way you can start implementing some of these strategies into your life as well. Hey there, I'm Dan Candell. I'm known worldwide as the anxiety relief guy. I help people reprogram their subconscious mind and their nervous system so they have more wins, more good days, and so life just gets easier, all without the unnecessary stress and the unnecessary anxiety weighing you down or holding you back. Over the past year, I let all of my clients know, and all the people in my group programs, I let everybody know, hey, I am going back to school. I'm learning some deeper protocols and therapeutic strategies that have the potential to change your life on an even deeper level. Would it be okay if I used these strategies with you? And most people agreed. And I have to say, the results were astounding. Like, I thought I was already helping people at a really deep level, and I was, but this expedited a lot of people's change, and it added layers and elements to the protocols I was already using to help people even more. Now, what does this mean? Well, a lot of people go through self-help programs. A lot of people work with therapists, or they take supplements, or do self-help workshops, or read books, and they're trying to educate themselves to work through some of the stuff that they've experienced, whether it be trauma, or self-doubt, or stress, or anxiety, or overwhelm, whatever holds them back. Now, a lot of the people who are going through my program, they've worked with therapists before. They've worked with life coaches before. They've worked with business coaches before. They've worked with gurus before. And many of them have achieved a lot of great results with those people. But there were still some lingering things that were hanging around. Things they thought they had gotten over. Things they thought they had released, but they were still affecting them and still sabotaging them. So I began integrating a couple of additional protocols into my practice with my individual clients and in my groups. And like I said, it was life-changing. Here's what life-changing means. We all have what we call an upper limits problem. This is defined in the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, one of my favorite books. And the upper limits problem is when we impose limitations on ourselves of what we're capable of doing. Usually, those upper limit problems are part of our identity and part of our value system, where it's like we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we're capable of until we achieve it. So what I've been doing with my clients over the past year has helped them get over those upper limit problems, achieve more, whether it be make more money, manage their teams more. For some people, it's even go out shopping at the grocery store without their spouse or partner. Some people, it's to break away from some of the toxicity that they were allowing into their lives. And then they were able to see what they were capable of doing. And I want those same results for you too. So here is some of the work that I've been integrating into my practice and into my group programs over the past year that has been life-changing for many of my program attendees and also many of my clients and also many of my colleagues. Part of doing this work is you have to practice. So I reached out to friends and colleagues of mine, and even these colleagues of mine who did very similar things or do very similar things to what I do, they were also amazed and astounded. So here's one piece of the work that I integrated into my practice that helped transform so many people. And I'm talking about not just like 10 or 15 people, I'm talking about hundreds of people that have gone through my program over the past year. Number one is deep identity work. We identify often with our problems. We also identify with what we're not capable of doing or what we feel like we can't do. When we take that on as an identity, we impose these limitations on ourselves. So I started doing some deep identity work with people. In my group program, I have this really cool insight process that helps you gain insight into what it's going to be like to switch your identity. Other people call this, in essence, the alter ego effect, where it's you are able to take off the blinders and see what you're really capable of, and then identifying with what you're capable of instead of what you're not capable of doing. Those stuck limiting identities, they come from our limiting belief systems, and they sabotage us. They fuck us up and they hold us back. So one of the processes that I just started doing was asking people questions about their identity and how they identified and how they want to identify. And if there was a super version of themselves that didn't have the problem, what would it be like? What would it sound like? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like? And once people identify those things from a point of imagination, then they can start to step into that new identity. But it doesn't end there. I found that a lot of people have these messed up identities from when they were younger or when they were growing up. In fact, what happens is they take on the identities, the belief systems of other people, and other people's normal becomes their normal. So for example, they'll see how mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or friends reacted or responded to something that was moderately stressful. And you've ever heard the term make a mountain out of a molehill? Well, that's what many of my clients do. They have these very creative ways to make mountains out of molehills, and they then identify and they get stuck inside of those problems and that problematic way of thinking. So after I ask people questions about their identity and we start changing different facets of their identity, then I do deep identity work using eye pattern movement. So what I do is I have people think about the relationship that they have with themselves between I, me, self, and I help them align those parts of themselves. So we all have different parts of ourselves that are out of whack and they're out of alignment. So what I do is I help people literally heal the wounded parts of their identity. Now, how do I do this? Some people will say, oh, well, you must put a person into a deep hypnotic state and you must talk to them about their identity. That's part of it, but it's not the whole part of it. What I actually have integrated into my protocols and practices with my individual clients and my groups is eye movement integration. Think of it as like EMDR on steroids. It's more effective and it's faster than EMDR. And the way this works to realign your identity and to heal those broken, wounded parts of your identity is freaking mind-blowing. I have had people who felt so stuck that all of a sudden, in the power of just like 1 or 2 sessions, they were able to pull themselves out of that stuck identity, that stuck state of mind, and they were able to see through the clouds, see through the fog, and they were able to achieve more. I'm talking about people have changed their entire course of action with their career, with their businesses, all because of this little like 1 or 2 session process and protocol that I've done with people. It is absolutely amazing. I had one woman who didn't even realize she had a wounded identity until we started doing this work. She just came to me, she said, Dan, I feel like there's like things in my life that aren't working and I don't know why. And whenever people say to me, there's something in my life that's not working and I don't know why, to me, my mind automatically goes to parts and identity, parts and identity. So I do parts work and identity work with people. But again, the identity work that I do isn't putting a person into a deep hypnotic state. It's a hypnotic technique, but it's like hypnosis without hypnosis. And it's really deep inner work. And the one client I'm talking about where she said, I just feel like I'm stuck and I don't even know why, or I feel like things aren't working and I don't know why. When we did this identity work, she literally changed everything about her business and it changed her entire course of action. It was amazing to see how she hit the ground running after that second session that we did. So that's the first thing I started incorporating into my programs is identity work, belief work. The second thing is value work. Value work. The reason why so many people feel so stressed, depressed, overwhelmed, anxious, worried all the time is because things aren't in alignment with their life. They're not connecting. So what I have done over the past year is almost everybody who goes through my program, depending on what level of the program that they go into, I do value work with them. And I also, in case I'm not available to do the value work, I have another value specialist that helps people identify, elicit, and align their 5 core values. This is a really deep part of inner work that we need to do if we want to make a lasting shift or lasting transformation. And again, yes, I'm a hypnotist, but this has nothing to do with hypnosis. It's all deep inner work, and I do use hypnotic strategies and modalities to help people align their values once we identify them, but it's really deep inner work that people get so many insights and inspirations, and they feel so empowered once they discover their core values and why they're important. Your core values, once you know them, they can explain everything about what you allow into your life, about why there are certain things that you feel uncomfortable about why you might have resistance with some things. There is so much deep insight that we can get from our 5 core values. And one of the things we do is after we align the 5 core values for our clients, I give them a really deep, powerful hypnosis session to make sure their core values are being fulfilled in all areas of their life. If their core values aren't being fulfilled or at least supported, guess what happens? More stress, more anxiety, more feeling depressed, more overwhelm, more worry, more doubt, more sleepless nights, and it can be a nightmare for people. So just by integrating and incorporating these 2 other modalities into my program, it was absolutely life-changing. Doing the deep identity work and using eye pattern movement to really change and shift those wounded, broken identities. And number 2, the value work, absolutely amazing and astounding. Now I gotta say this though, there is a certain way that I do it and the people who work on my team do it. There's a certain way that we do it that makes it effective. There have been some people that I referred out to other people that I thought knew how to do this type of work, and guess what happened? They weren't successful because there's a very refined way of doing this type of work. So for example, when I do the values work with you, after the values session, I put together a whole values profile about you and I send it to you. And guess what happens after that? You read that profile and you're like, holy shit, it's like you saw into my soul and you knew the deepest part of who I was. I've had people say to me, you knew more about me than I knew about myself. And it's kind of scary, but it's enlightening. It's enlightening. And I don't know any other program or anybody else who does things that way that warrants that response. And then once you have your core values, you have that core values profile, you can go through it and it fits you every step of the way. And I tell people, I say, I want you to make sure you're revisiting that values profile at least once a quarter to make sure things are still in alignment with you. And those are the 2 protocols, the 2, I'll say like little magic pills that I sprinkled into my sessions and into my program that just made them so much more fulfilling, so much more effective for people, and people get much more effective, dramatic change that way. So I hope this helped, and even if it just gave you insight into like, hey, this is some of the work that I want to explore doing, or this is some of the work that I think would be effective for me, that is fantastic. Then I've done my job. So my friends, with that said, as always, be well, do good, be true to who you are, happy healing, and I'll talk to you soon.